Welcome everyone to today's EnRoute webinar. My name's Bennett. I'll be your moderator today. Our presenter is Jesse Ricky. He is the EnRoute product manager and he knows everything there is to know about EnRoute. Today he'll be taking us through some of the great new features in EnRoute 7. After the presentation, we'll be able to answer any questions you have either about EnRoute 7 or any other EnRoute topics. So feel free to put those questions in the chat and we'll answer as many as we can. We are recording the webinar as always, so if you want to review anything, save it, or share it with anyone else, we'll be sending you all the link here this afternoon, so look out for that. And with that, I think we're ready to get started, so I'll turn the presentation over to Jesse.
All right. Well, like Bennett said, thank you all for joining us today. We are going to go over kind of some new and exciting features for EnRoute 7, kind of an introduction to it. The first thing is there are a lot of modifications that did happen with EnRoute 7 that are behind the scenes, and I'm going to kind of show you what those are and kind of how they play effect into the new updated interface and overall aspect of EnRoute 7. So on screen, you should see EnRoute 7. It does look a little bit different than 6. We have updated the icons, even though right now I am emulating EnRoute 6. So one of the new things that we have added into EnRoute 7 is the fact that you can go back and emulate an older version, which is 6, if you choose to, if you're more comfortable with that. Since we did update icons in that, I'm going to show you what it looks like by default, and then essentially how to switch back and forth. So up here in the help menu, there's a setup options, and this is essentially where we put our skins, so to speak, for the software. So inside here, I can go ahead and say that I want to emulate a different version of EnRoute 6 if I want. However, this one, the standard, this is just going to be the default for EnRoute 7. As you can see, the icons are changed a little bit. We have added in a backplot button, which I use very frequently. Once again, that is something that comes with every install of EnRoute, and it is just a code reader, so that way we can check the code after it's been produced from the software. So another thing inside the software that's new, especially with EnRoute 7, is instead of having a little red triangle like EnRoute 6 and EnRoute 5, for a flyout menu, now there are drop-down arrows. So if I were to choose that I'm going to open up a file or import, now you'll see that that icon changes to the default. So rather than having to go back and forth within those menus, the last option that you chose will now become the default icon. Okay. However, like I said, if you do prefer the layout that you had in 6, or you want to try out a different version, you can just come up here, and it's very quick to go back to EnRoute 6. Let's say that we want to go to the complete version, which would be the subscription. I can go ahead and put it here. I can still move these tone-on-tone bars to wherever I choose to, and realign my setup if that's what I want to do as well. Okay. We do have a video on our YouTube page as well if you do want to customize your icons, menus, or your hotkeys or shortcuts. There is a video on there that shows you how to do that in EnRoute 7 as well. That is a new feature that was not available in EnRoute 6. So if you do want the same shortcuts as you have in AutoCAD or a different software, you can now do that in EnRoute 7. Okay. Inside here, you'll see that some of these menus have changed, where in EnRoute 6 is a little bit more graphical, where this one is has more of a Excel spreadsheet sort of layout. Inside here, you still have the same type of information, except you have your name of your template is going to be right here. So rather than having to hit save and adding a template here, you can put in your name here and then go ahead and click save in order to save your templates for your plate. Okay. However, if I add it on screen, it looks just like it did in EnRoute 6, lovely red box, and we can start working, importing, drawing, or whatever we choose to. Okay. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to EnRoute 7 real quick, so that way we can go over some of the new features that we've added inside of here. One of the first ones that we've added, which is very helpful for both support and for customer engagement, is our cloud window. So over here, instead of having the PDF version of the manual, we do have an HTML, which just means it's on the web now. So if we do click our EnRoute knowledge base, it's going to bring up our manual. You can come in here, you can search different items. You can go through. We are going to update this with different tutorials and items like that as well, but just something that's a little bit easier to search through. However, every install of EnRoute still comes with a PDF version of it, just in case you do want to use it offline as well. Okay. Our YouTube page that has a lot of our videos and that on it. If you're taking a look at our events or support, we have those as well. Inside here are cloud tools. These are different resources that we provide you with as well. Find My Font just gets you closer to the font that's on an image. So you can go ahead and it will give you kind of a readout of what percentage that this font is and where to find it. Sign Design Elements has a lot of good pictures for rapid picture. It has quite a bit of vectors in that as well. Patterns are really nice through here as well. And one-line fonts, this is our resource for single-stroke fonts. Used a lot in the fabrication world, especially with plasmas, where we're taking either using the gas to scribe the metal or an actual scribe pen to do a single stroke rather than the actual outline of a font. And then down here, the managed subscription has all the information that you need. For instance, if your card expires and you need to update that as well. Just other resources that you have there that's quick and easy, just so you don't have to call in and have us walk you through it. We still do have that option, but just makes it a little bit easier to manage on your side as well. Okay. And once again, I can always hide this menu if I don't want to see it, or I can click the little cloud and activate it as well. So the cloud window, that is something that, once again, is going to be something that we continually update. So as we provide more resources and more information, we can send out information through the cloud window and provide you with other resources as well. For instance, if there is an update to EnRoute 7 as far as the build, so if we find fixes or bugs or anything like that, we can notify you through the cloud window, which we didn't have access to in previous versions of EnRoute. So that is also very handy and very helpful. So that way we can always make sure that you guys are up to date on the latest build and what has been fixed in previous versions. So once again, the cloud window is a big part of EnRoute 7. And not only is it to provide you with resources, but gives you some information there as well. Okay. A lot of the improvements, like I said, is kind of behind the scenes. EnRoute 7 is a 64-bit program, where EnRoute 6 and before was all 32. Just means that we can access more memory and we can process bigger files. Okay. So a couple different things that are involved with that. A lot of it has to do with ATP and your nesting. So that is actually going to improve, and it will actually start speeding up. So that is a big thing for EnRoute 7. Okay. However, there are other tweaks that you can see visually as well. One of them that I really like is the double click to edit for text. So inside here, we enter EnRoute just like we would in the previous versions. So right now it highlights as purple or magenta or whatever color you consider this. Inside here with previous versions of EnRoute, you would go in, activate the tool again, highlight them, and you go into text. Okay. Now we can just double click and then highlight them just like we did in previous versions. Once again, just trying to speed up that process as far as the workflow goes. So now if I want to change this, now I can go in and start changing the font however I choose to. Okay. Another thing is the selection methods. So there's 2 selection methods inside of EnRoute 7 now. There is a bounding lasso, which is just like previous versions where everything has to be encompassed in that selection. But now if you drag from the bottom and go up, now it is a touching lasso. So anything you touch now becomes selected as well. So we have got quite a few requests over the years for adding in a touching lasso, and with EnRoute 7, we have accomplished that. So now it just depends on how or the direction that you select. So if you go from the top and go down, it's going to be a bounding lasso. So as you can see, it doesn't highlight anything here, but once I go all the way around, it will. And if you go from the bottom, it now becomes a touching lasso, like in some other softwares. Another thing that we've been requested that has been implemented in EnRoute 7 is being able to move objects in the perspective view. So I can still shift, rotate, and move my objects or move my view, but now I can actually physically move my objects or my pictures or bitmaps or whatever kind of objects I have on screen. EnRoute is able to move them in the perspective view now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to convert this real quick. Okay, and I'm going to weld these together. Okay. All right, so here's my objects. Let's go ahead and group these. Okay, so inside here, for instance, let's go ahead and group these again. So let's say that I want this letter O. And what I can do is I can actually create a mesh contour from it. So as if I was building it out in 3D. So if I want to send this out as a proof, or if I want to send this to a different program, it's a very quick and easy way to send out a 3D object from 2D contours that EnRoute has. So it uses the same concepts as our 3D relief. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say pyramid. Let's go ahead and give it a height of 1 inch and a return height. So just a small step at the bottom, and let's say 1/8 of an inch. So here's my 3D object next to my 2D part that we created it from. Another thing kind of along the same line would be our primitive tools. So inside here, just like our polygon tool, if we went in and let's go ahead and let's create a polygon. So let's go into our shapes. Okay, so inside our polygon, you're going to see there's the menu at the bottom is going to look slightly different than it did with EnRoute 6. So with EnRoute 6, it had convex and concave here, but now we have an option down here. So whether we want to leave it as a 2D format or if we want to build it out in a 3D. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a star. And I'm going to do it as in 3D, and the height is going to be, say, 1 inch. And what happens is now it is going to give you a nice even star, whereas if I try to do this with previous versions of EnRoute, you would have a nice big peak right here, and you would have to actually cut that out. So the way that I got around that in previous versions is I would build a series of 3 triangles inside here and then merge them together. And that would create this shape. So all this is going to do is this is going to speed up that process again. and give me an object that actually meets in the middle and is very nice in 3D. Okay. Another thing that we have in EnRoute 7, which is very helpful, especially when I'm working with fabrication, I use this all the time now, is if I were to bring in an object. So let's go ahead and let's open up a file. Okay. Like this, for instance, if I'm working with fabrication, sometimes it's a little hard to see what is going to fall out or drop out and what is going to stay attached. So what I can do now with EnRoute 7 is I'm going to hit Control-Shift F9, which is the hotkey for this, and now it will display contours. So now I can actually see what it's looked like. So if I highlight it, I can see, okay, now this is going to drop. These white places will drop out, and the color contour will stay or will be the material that I'm using. Okay. Now with text, it highlights as a different color. So once again, if I put in EnRoute, it highlights as blue by default. So now it'll be very easy for you to tell that this is actual text without highlighting it. But once you convert it to curves, it displays the same as it does with your contours. So something that's changed with EnRoute 7, once again, just being able to display contours and that is very helpful, especially when you need to know what is going to fall out and what isn't. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a general 2D shape on here. Go ahead and let's do 2D. All right. And now, for instance, with something like this, with previous versions of EnRoute, there's no way that I would ever choose spiral fill for this, okay? Because spiral fill had a lot of lift points in it. However, we have improved that now. So now if we go into spiral fill, let's go ahead and let's give it a 1/4 inch end mill. It still does have a few more lifts than other versions. However, as you can see, it is built in now to where instead of as soon as it breaks this, all these would be individual lines, and now their contours connected together. So now it's a much better fit for this, and there's a lot better algorithm behind the scenes with spiral fill than there was previously. There's also a few other things that have been done with other fills. So for instance, if I have the letter E, which this can apply to a lot of different circumstances. However, the letter E just demonstrates this very well. Yeah, I'm just going to change this font. Let's do. Okay. So now if we go in here and I do an island fill, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use an 1/8 inch end mill. Okay, as you can see inside here, there's a few lift points in here, especially with this little area. Okay, there's one here, here, and then there's 2 up at the top. And the problem is sometimes when I'm routing, these parts will actually break or chip off just because there's not a whole lot of material that's actually holding it in there as it comes back down into cut. So there is another option inside here, and rather than the standard, I can say that I don't want to lift out of the part until it's done with its fill. So now if I say okay, as you can see, EnRoute creates kind of this odd little tool path in here to cut those little parts without actually having to lift out of the material and then lift back in. So once again, machining time, workflow, and kind of an improvement overall with the software. So those are some of the things that we have improved with. We've also added different tools for the fabrication style cutting. So inside here we have kerf comp, we have kerf marking and kerf fill, which we did not have in previous versions. So in previous versions of 6, the engrave option in that looked as if it were for a router. Inside here now, it is the same thing as if you were doing a kerf comp. So the menus are identical for fabrication throughout. So that way a nice clean workflow, and your menu options are the same visually. Okay. We've also added in ATP. So we have redesigned this. With previous versions of EnRoute, you do have to click kind of back and forth through this. And now we are kind of going from left to right as the sequence goes. So if I do have an application list, I can. So we do have our list of different vendors inside here. Your parts. So as you import them in, we can map to different layers and different size of material as well. So rather than having one standard sheet of material, I can say that I have a couple different sizes, and EnRoute will nest to them as well. These are my materials. So if I do have different height and width and thicknesses, I can add them in here. Processing, we did add in double-sided machining for EnRoute 7. So these are options here. And we have a few videos on that specifically as well. And then you get to your output, which would be, do you want to create an output, a printout of parts? How are your priorities going to go? And then what is your actual output path, file name, and if you want to print. So like I said, we did kind of overhaul the ATP to make it a little bit easier to follow through rather than having to click back and forth at different parts like we did with previous versions. So like I said, a lot of changes are going to be behind the scenes, and it's going to be improvements in speed. Inside here, we have added in a few different wizards as well, along with some solutions. So the library manager, for instance, if I want to merge libraries or modify them, for instance, if I'm bringing in different INI files, so let's say if I have 2 different shops, I want to take some strategies from one shop and some from another, I can actually go in and tell it, okay, this is the tool that I want, and this is the strategy that I want to move over, and you can actually create your own custom INI file from 2 other ones. Okay? Pretty handy, especially if you're looking to clear out some strategies as well. You can go in and delete them. However, you can just make a modification to that as well and make a new file from those versions. Okay. So the one of the final things that we've added with EnRoute 7 that is pretty handy is going to be the Flatbed Tool. For instance, if I need to cut out a piece of vinyl or something that has fiducials on it, but I don't have a camera, I can actually use this tool instead. So I'm going to go and I'm going to delete out these tool paths real quick. And I'm going to create just some circles. Okay, so as a print, and then I'm going to, okay, inside the Flatbed Tool, I can tell it that I'm using a 1/2-inch fiducial. And then inside here, I would actually go in and measure it after I would put the tool over it and say, okay, it's actually over here, and I can move these to an exact location here. And what it will do is it will actually distort that cutting contour. So now when I go to cut it, it will cut it according to how it's laid out on the machine. Once again, accounting for stretch and skew, just more in a manual way rather than having to purchase a camera solution for it. Like I said, there are quite a few videos on our YouTube page with different features that we've added in that as well. So if you go to our YouTube projects, and so we have our videos, our playlists, kind of all of our webinars, our EnRoute 7 features, and then you also have the knowledge base as well to go in and take a look and see kind of a more in-depth video of what has been added to EnRoute 7 and kind of how it functions and operates as well. All right. Well, now we are open for questions. If you guys do have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and type it in the chat menu, and we will go ahead and we will answer it. Alan, the custom toolbars, that is actually available right now. You can go in and you can customize them. So how it activates, what buttons are underneath there, and that as well. That is a video that we have produced on how to do that. It is in an XML format at the moment, but that includes shortcuts, the menu options, and the icons as well. Paul, the flatbed tool, that is used for kind of a print and cut. So if you were to print on vinyl for, let's say, a decal or something like that, you can use this rather than having a camera on your machine. You can actually use the position of the machine to calculate where these dots are and account for stretch and skew. Alan, the help video for the icons on that is going to be on the YouTube projects for EnRoute Cloud. I can send you over that link as well. David, I'm reading your question right now. The star of the triangles met as a sharp edge in V6. It would round these. And prism lettering. Okay, so like as if I took this letter here and sorry, it doesn't help when I click on the same button twice. So you still have a little bit of an issue with it inside here because of how the letters are moving. So it doesn't give you a true prismatic. It still has to do with how it's joining. But some fonts do work better than others as far as creating this. This one has a lot of curvature to it, so it's a little bit different. But you could use this as kind of a way of creating prismatic lettering. Is that kind of what you were getting at, David? Let's see. Okay. Paul, EnRoute 7 is available for traditional and subscription. So if you do want to purchase it outright, you can. And then we have subscription options available too. Okay, Jeremy, enter the tool path and setting height. If I choose to edit the depth, it doesn't transfer to that page. After setting height. Jeremy, I'm not quite following you on this question. If you could, I can reach out to you after this session and we can set up a team viewer and take a look at that and see exactly what's going on with it. But that is something that I would want to take a look at. I'm not quite following. Any enhancements to toolpathing as controller, corner, entry, exit velocities. Inside the toolpath for routing offsets, there is a different algorithm that has to deal with sharp corners and bit diameters to actual corners. A lot of it has to do with tool comp, but not as far as the entry exit velocity. So, Bill, that is something that we are still working on, and hopefully we can get it into a future build. And, Chris, the G code before it's actually output, it is actually going to physically output it through EnRoute, but before you run it on your machine, if you click this button, or if you go to the solutions menu, it's called backplot. It's just a general code reader. And inside here, I could open up CNC files and take a look at the code itself if I chose to. So if I open up, let's look for a CNC file. So inside here, I could take a look at the code here, look at the depths, and then it'll give me a visual of what it's going to look like as well.
See, David had a follow-up question about the letters. Is there a way to keep the height of the center of the letters the same?
So as of right now, there's not. You can get it to where it's fairly consistent, but it has to deal with how it's creating those objects. So that would be a true prismatic, where you can control that, and we don't have access to that yet. It is something that we have talked about, and we have kind of in the works, but it's not something that we have planned on releasing anytime soon. The 64-bit should help rendering. Yes, it should, Paul. So it should help up your rendering speed, and especially if you have a lot of object on screen, should be able to shift, move, and rotate along with processing that at the same time.
All right. Are there any final questions before we sign off here? Got a couple. Can I import my EnRoute 6 INI files for the router offset strategies?
Ken, yes, you can. So you can import them in, and you can use them in EnRoute 7 just like you did in EnRoute 6.
And then we'll take one more from Bill. Last question. Any new textures / surfaces?
There's not any new ones. So inside here, we create this. The pictures are going to look different, but the textures are going to be the same from 6 to 7 as of right now. We're looking at adding some other ones, but as of right now, they're the same ones that we had in the last version of 6.
All right. Well, thanks, Jesse, for answering those questions. That's about all the time we have for today. So we'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you all for joining us for today's EnRoute webinar. Make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter so you don't miss any webinars or announcements. In our next EnRoute webinar, we'll take a more in-depth look at the new cloud window tools, and that'll be on June 22nd. We hope to see you there. Thank you again for attending. We hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.